Hello everyone, welcome back to Time and Tell. This week on the channel, one of our viewers has sent in his piece for review. It is the Seiko SRP777, or as many Seiko fans have belovedly nicknamed this watch, the Seiko Turtle. I'm going to go into a little bit of the history of the Seiko Turtle series, and then also go down into the technical specifications of the watch, talk a little bit about aesthetics, pros and cons, as our usual format goes, and then give my final thoughts. So let's get started. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into the history of Seiko. I've done that in earlier videos. In addition, I've done a little bit of history on the Seiko Dive Watch series, so I'm going to link that below. But I'm just going to briefly go over the history and lineage of the Seiko Turtle. So before we talk about the watch itself, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Seiko Turtle line. Started in 1976, the original series was called the Seiko 6309 version. Now, it's very similar to the watch I hold in my hands today, but it had a few slight differences. One being the size. So the dimensions of the original Seiko Turtle was at 47 millimeters in height, 45 millimeters in width, and 13 millimeters thick. It's a little bit shorter than the current Turtle series in my hand right now. Also, the bezel was known to be a bidirectional bezel versus the unidirectional, as the new SRP series has. The Seiko Turtle actually had a lot of claim to fame in movies such as Apocalypse Now, where you could see Martin Sheen wearing it on his wrist throughout the film. It kind of bolstered this watch to be a rugged military piece. And as a dive watch, as a tool watch, this thing is a very solid line, a very solid history behind it. And I'm going to get a little more into the current Turtle I hold in my hand today. Now let's talk a little bit more about the specifics on this piece in my hand. The Seiko SRP777X or 777 is the version I hold right now. It measures at 45 millimeters across the face of the dial, a thickness of 13 millimeters, a lug-to-lug measurement of a very modest 48 millimeters. Now, for the size of this piece, 48 is very contemporary, and I think that really adds to the wearability of this watch. Most pieces at 45 millimeters usually have lug-to-lug measurements of 50 millimeters or higher. I think that's what's really unique about this, the cushion case design. Now, let's also talk a little bit more about the case. Another feature that I really like on this case is the addition of drilled lugs, which allows for easy strap interchangeability. This watch was meant to be worn on different straps, whether it be a metal bracelet, the rubber silicone strap in my hand, or even a NATO or Perlon strap. The drilled lugs really allow for that to be a promotional feature of this timepiece. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the movement of this watch. This watch houses the Seiko 4R36, the upgraded movement from the 7S26 series found in the SKX line. I really enjoy this movement. Now, this piece in my hand, I'm currently clocking it to measure around +4 seconds a day, which is within cost, and for a non-chronometer watch, that's very impressive, especially for a Seiko. They make quality products at their price point. I don't know anyone else who makes a watch that runs within cost specs for the sub $200 price that they feature. Now, the 4R36 also has the additional feature of hand winding hackability, meaning that pulling out the crown, I can actually wind this watch. So even if I don't wear it on my wrist for a few days, I can just take it out of the case, quickly wind it and put it back without the hassle of changing the time and date. Also, pulling out the watch to the time set position hacks the time or stops the second hand, which allows you to sync to an atomic clock, just in order to get a better feel of accuracy. Now, I know we talked a little bit about the case with the drill lugs, but I also think the look of this dial, I like the three-dimensionality of these lume markers, as well as the lume on the hands, especially these polished edges, as you can see on the hour and minute hand. I mean, this is just a minor thing, but I also noticed that from the original 6309 to this SRP series, the second hand, I noticed the ball has moved to the back end of the second hand, whereas the original version, the ball was sitting on the end. It's a minor thing, but I actually prefer the old version. But again, trivial gripe. Also, the bezel, it's a single direction bezel versus the bidirectional 6309. The turning action of it is not the best, but it's not horrible either. It's a little tough to do with gloves on, but you know, you can see it's got like more of a ratchety noise as you turn it. I've handled SKX lines, and I think they have a better feel of the bezels, but we're not comparing these to Rolexes, Tudors, or even Omegas at a higher end. So for the price point, it's a good value that you're getting on this piece. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about general aesthetics of this case. This is the black SRP777 series. There's many versions of it, but the core version family of this line I think is the 773, which is the blue dial, which also comes on a bracelet. Then the 775, which is the black with gold markers on it, which also comes on a bracelet. Then you have the 777, which is the version here, and then the 779, which is the Pepsi version, which has the blue and the red, as well as coming on a rubber strap. There's also many aftermarket straps from Strap Code, and I know Uncle Seiko makes some high quality bracelets that are a much better value than what Seiko delivers. This rubber strap is not a bad bracelet either, though, or a bad strap. It wears very comfortably on the wrist, a lot better than what's included in the SKX line. The only other thing I could say about it is it wears well in hot weather. So if you live in a climate where it's very warm or very humid, I think this rubber strap, it's super comfortable. I haven't tried the Uncle Seiko waffle straps. I've heard good things about them, but there's a lot of options out there, a lot of aftermarket modifications you could do on this watch, which is another pro on the piece. Now I also want to talk about cons. This one's going to be pretty obvious. I know a lot of people may agree with me. It's just the size of this watch. Now I know earlier I said that it wears very well with the short lug-to-lug measurement, but 45 millimeters, it still takes up a lot of wrist space, and I really feel that if this watch was a flick smaller, say even 43 millimeters, but ideally 42, it just would wear perfect. It would be the perfect everyday timepiece. Just the look and the feel quality. I think it's at least a level or two above the SKX line, and I think that's really what throws me off on it. It's just the size of this watch. And the other thing I have to say that I kind of wish that this watch didn't have would be the 22 millimeter lug width. Now for a 45 millimeter you need 22. However, if we drop the size down to 42, I really wish Seiko kept the measurement of the lug width at 20. And I know the new line, the SBDC 051 and 53, are 42 millimeter watches with 20 millimeter straps. I just think that carries over. For those of us who own a set of straps, NATOs, etc., in a 20 millimeter length, I would really hate to repurchase them at 22 millimeter. And I know some people are not the fans of wearing a 20 millimeter NATO or a Perlon on a 22 millimeter width strap. So that's just a couple minor gripes I have on it. Other than that, I really think this is a good value for the money. Oh, one more con I'd like to add to that is not present on this model, but I've heard from many that alignment issues with the chapter ring for Seikos is a common defect. You have to be careful. I mean, for this one, it's lining up pretty well. I have seen some that are noticeably bad, not horrendous, but you can still see that the loom pip doesn't line up with the 12 o'clock marker. Now that's a minor issue, but I know a lot of people who are perfectionists, especially when it comes to these tools. They may feel that that's a little bit something you got to learn to live with Seiko. So again, nothing major, but just something to be aware of when you're out there looking at these models. So my final thoughts on the SRP77X series. I think that Seiko makes a quality product. You get a good value for what it is. The movement is excellent. The hand winding, the hackability, the fact that these things run. I mean, plus 4 seconds a day is great. I know some people get a little bit more, a little bit less, but anywhere in that variance is excellent for the price. So I don't think you can go wrong with the Seiko Turtle. The only thing I will tell you to do is, especially if you have a wrist size of 7 inches or below, go try this on at a store. Make sure that this sits well on your wrist. And I know a lot of people who are not fans of the cushion case actually come to love it. I also know a lot of people who have larger wrists. Even someone told me with the 7.5 inch wrist that this wore too big for him. So just make sure you know what you're getting into before you purchase it. But other than that, I think it's a solid timepiece and definitely one of the winners in my book. And there you guys have it. That's been my review of the Seiko SRP777 or the Seiko Turtle. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and as always, please feel free to share this video and hit the subscribe button below. And I look forward to seeing you guys again on Time and Tell. Take care, guys.